All right, so let's dive right in. Today, we're going to look at some pretty wild stuff that's been happening.
Sounds good.
First, we'll unpack this interesting relationship between President Trump and Prime Minister Starmer.
Oh, yeah. Definitely interesting.
And then we're going to wrap our heads around this new Chinese AI, DeepSeek.
Mm-hmm. Big implications there.
Now, you might be wondering, what could these two possibly have in common?
Well, good question. I mean, on the surface, they seem pretty different.
Yeah, totally. But by the end, I think you'll see some connections.
Hopefully I can connect those dots. Should be fascinating, at least.
Okay, so first up, Trump and Starmer. Let's be real, nobody expected this, right?
I mean, yeah, it's been a bit of a surprise, like that phone call last weekend.
Yeah.
Super positive.
Right, and then Trump praising Starmer publicly. That's not exactly typical Trump behavior.
Totally. I mean, Trump's not exactly known for holding back when he dislikes someone, is he?
Exactly. So what's the deal here? Strategic politeness. Or is there something more?
Tough to say for sure. But maybe it's worth looking at the bigger picture, you know?
You mean like globally?
Yeah. The whole political landscape's changing, right?
Yeah.
Alliances shifting, priorities changing.
I see what you're saying. Maybe they're finding common ground they didn't expect.
Possibly. They might see eye to eye on more than we think. Definitely worth watching how it plays out.
Absolutely. And speaking of things to watch, what about the things they're not talking about?
Oh yeah, good point. Like, what about Lord Mandelson?
The new UK ambassador to Washington.
Right. That appointment's causing some serious waves. And then there's the whole defense spending issue.
Yeah, Trump's pushing for those higher NATO contributions, but the UK seems to be prioritizing economic growth.
Exactly. And don't forget, Trump's probably going to push for a ceasefire in Ukraine.
Another potential point of friction.
Yeah, for sure. So how all of this gets handled, or doesn't get handled, will be very telling.
Really highlights the complexity of this transatlantic relationship, huh?
Big time. Oh, and you know what else is interesting? Remember how Trump dealt with Colombia?
With their deportation policies, even like when he used those tariffs?
Bingo. And that's a good reminder. The UK might have a trade surplus with the US now. But Trump's shown he's not afraid to use tariffs to get what he wants, regardless of trade balances.
So that adds a whole other layer of uncertainty to the US-UK relationship.
Yep. And I think it shows how these global shifts we were talking about, they really could affect everything.
For sure. Okay, so we've got this kind of strange political pairing happening on one side of the world.
Right, with all these potential complications.
And on the other side of the world, we've got this AI thing blowing up.
Yeah, this DeepSeek AI is really shaking things up.
It seems like it's kind of rewriting the rules of AI, right?
It really is. Like, the tech world is freaking out a little bit.
In a good way or a bad way?
A bit of both, honestly. I mean, DeepSeek is doing some amazing things.
Yeah, but it was also developed for, like, way less money than anyone thought possible, right?
Right. And that's got everyone kind of nervous, especially the big tech companies.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, NVIDIA's stock price took a major hit.
Almost 20%. That's huge. And some people are comparing this to, like, the Sputnik moment.
Wow, like a turning point in the whole tech race.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, will AI keep going down the same path? Super expensive, controlled by these giant corporations.
Or will DeepSeek change everything?
That's the big question. It could make AI way more accessible, disrupt everything we thought we knew.
So how is DeepSeek different from what we've been seeing from, say, ChatGPT?
Well, for one thing, it's open source. Anyone can access the code, modify it, use it.
And ChatGPT isn't?
Nope. OpenAI keeps their stuff pretty locked down.
So what does that mean, being open source? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's complicated. I mean, it could really democratize AI, right? More people involved, faster development.
That sounds good.
Yeah, but it also means it's harder to control. Think about it. Anyone could use it to develop, well, anything.
Like AI-powered surveillance. Or even weapons.
Exactly. So there are definitely some ethical concerns there. It's a powerful tool.
And speaking of powerful, how does DeepSeek fit into, like, the US-China rivalry?
Oh, it adds a whole new layer of complexity. China being able to develop something this sophisticated.
And for so little money.
Right. It really shows how they're catching up technologically.
And then it also highlights how different their approach is. DeepSeek seems to be great at math and science.
But it struggles with topics that are sensitive in China, like Tiananmen Square, or their treatment of Uyghurs.
So the AI is kind of shaped by its environment.
Absolutely. Which raises some big questions about bias in AI if it's developed in a closed system.
It might reflect that system's values.
Exactly. And that's something we need to be really careful about. As AI gets more powerful, we need to think about who's controlling it.
And how it's being used. Makes sense. Now, there's been some debate about that $6 million development cost.
Yeah, some experts are saying it's got to be higher than that, but even if it's more.
It's still way less than what Western companies have been spending.
Right. And that suggests there might be totally different ways to develop AI. We might be on the verge of a real paradigm shift.
And that brings us back to what you were saying about the UK's AI strategy.
Oh, yeah. They might need to rethink things quickly. DeepSeek has really changed the game.
Yeah, it seems like things are moving really fast in the AI world right now.
Definitely. And this whole DeepSeek thing, it's like a wake-up call.
For who? Like, everyone.
Pretty much. Governments, companies, researchers, everyone working in AI needs to pay attention.
So it's not just about, like, who has the best AI right now.
No, it's about being adaptable, being willing to change course. The old ways might not work anymore.
So, okay, we've talked about Trump and Starmer, we've talked about DeepSeek. What does this all mean for our listener?
Good question. I mean, it's easy to think these things are totally separate, right?
Yeah, like one's politics, the other's technology.
But they're connected, believe it or not. The world's getting more and more complex, and these things influence each other.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think about how the US and UK might approach AI if they start working more closely together, like we were talking about.
Because of Trump and Starmer.
Right. That could shape how they respond to China's AI development, especially with DeepSeek shaking things up.
So everything's kind of intertwined. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big takeaways from all of this.
That the world's unpredictable and interconnected.
Exactly. We started with these two seemingly unrelated things.
But now we're seeing how they could actually converge and influence each other.
And that's what makes this stuff so fascinating, right? The more you dig, the more connections you find.
Absolutely. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with one final thought.
Okay, shoot.
If a Chinese hedge fund can create something like DeepSeek for so much less money than anyone thought possible, what else is out there?
Ooh, that's a good one. What other surprises are just waiting to be discovered?
Right, and what will those discoveries mean for the future? I think that's something for our listener to ponder.
Definitely. Keep those brains buzzing.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone, and we'll see you next time.